George Soros. To some, he's a hero of democracy, a philanthropist with a vision for an open society. To others, he's a shadowy figure, manipulating global events from behind the scenes. But who is the real George Soros? A financial genius who broke the Bank of England? Or the puppet master behind political unrest across the globe? Controversial, influential, and immensely powerful, Soros has been blamed for everything from economic turmoil to political upheavals. His actions have made him a lightning rod for conspiracy theories, especially among those who believe that one man should not wield so much power. But what's the truth behind the man? Is he really the mastermind that many claim? Or is there another side to this story? George Soros was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1930 into a Jewish family just as Europe was on the brink of war. His childhood was marked by the rising tide of anti-Semitism and the spread of Nazi ideology across the continent. The Soros family, though well off, was not spared the horrors of World War II. When the Nazis occupied Hungary in 1944, young George witnessed firsthand the brutality of a regime intent on eradicating his people. His father, Tivadar Soros, was a lawyer and a man of remarkable ingenuity. Understanding the imminent danger, Tivadar took drastic steps to protect his family. He secured false identities, arranged hiding places, and even managed to bribe officials. It was through these extreme measures that the Soros family survived the Holocaust, while many of their relatives did not. George himself was forced to live under a Christian alias and was tasked with delivering deportation notices to fellow Jews, a traumatic experience that would stay with him for life. In 1947, after the war, George fled the remnants of a shattered Europe to England. There he enrolled at the London School of Economics, where he encountered the philosopher Karl Popper, whose ideas on open societies and the fallibility of human knowledge would shape Soros' worldview, and later, his philanthropic ambitions. Popper's concept of the open society, one that is tolerant, democratic, and open to change, became a guiding principle for Soros. This, combined with his own experiences of persecution and survival, planted the seeds for what would become one of the most significant philanthropic ventures in modern history. But before he could change the world, Soros would need to make his mark in a different arena. Imagine being 17, alone in a new country, with nothing but your wits and a desire to understand the world. How did this young man turn into the financial titan we know today? Let's move forward. In the 1950s, Soros began his financial career in London, working as a banker. Soros, however, found the routine tasks of banking mundane. He was driven by a deeper curiosity, an interest in understanding the forces that move markets and the psychology that drove investors. After several years in London, Soros moved to New York City in 1956, where he joined the firm FM Mayer as an arbitrage trader. This was a pivotal moment in his career, but Soros wasn't just another trader, he was a thinker. In 1969, Soros founded his first hedge fund, Double Eagle, which would later be renamed the Quantum Fund. This was the start of Soros' rise as a financial visionary. The Quantum Fund was one of the first hedge funds to utilize global macroeconomic strategies, meaning Soros and his team would take positions based on their views of entire economies, betting on currency movements, interest rates, and other macroeconomic factors. Soros' theory of reflexivity, inspired by his philosophical studies, posited that market values are influenced by the biases of market participants, and that these biases can lead to self-reinforcing market trends. In other words, markets were not perfectly rational as traditional economics suggested, but were instead prone to swings caused by human emotions like fear and greed. This insight allowed Soros to make bold, often contrarian bets that would come to define his career. He quickly earned a reputation as a shrewd and daring investor. His hedge fund began generating incredible returns, with some years seeing gains of more than 100%. Soros wasn't just beating the market, he was redefining how it could be understood and exploited. His innovative thinking would soon lead him to one of the most daring and profitable trades in history. Are you ready to hear the story of the man who broke the Bank of England? It was September 16th, 1992, a day that would go down in history as Black Wednesday. The British government was struggling to maintain the value of the pound sterling within the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, ERM, a system designed to keep European currencies stable ahead of the creation of the euro. But Soros had a different view. He believed that the pound was overvalued and that the British government's efforts to prop it up were doomed to fail. Using his deep understanding of macroeconomic forces and his theory of reflexivity, Soros saw what others did not. He recognized that the British government's attempts to keep the pound within the ERM would eventually collapse under the pressure of market forces. Soros bet big, £10 billion, essentially betting that the value of the pound would drop. The sheer scale of this trade was unprecedented. Soros wasn't just speculating, he was orchestrating a financial coup. As the British government scrambled to defend the pound, Soros continued to increase his position, confident that he was on the right side of history. And he was. When the British government finally capitulated and withdrew the pound from the ERM, the currency plummeted just as Soros had predicted. The result? Soros' fund made a staggering $1 billion in profit in a single day. Overnight, Soros became a legend in the financial world, but he also became a target. Critics accused him of attacking the British currency and destabilizing the economy for personal gain. The British media dubbed him the man who broke the Bank of England, a title that would follow him for the rest of his life. While this trade made Soros a hero to some, it also made him a villain to others. But this was just the beginning of his influence on global markets. What happened next? Soros' reputation as a financial mastermind was cemented in 1997 during the Asian financial crisis. Southeast Asia had been experiencing rapid economic growth, but beneath the surface, there were vulnerabilities. Currencies were overvalued, and economies were heavily dependent on foreign capital. As these vulnerabilities began to surface, Soros and his quantum fund were once again at the center of the storm. Soros saw an opportunity in the overvalued Thai baht, and he began shorting the currency, betting that it would devalue. His actions contributed to a wave of speculative attacks on the baht, leading to its eventual collapse. The effects were devastating. Thailand's economy was thrown into turmoil, and the crisis quickly spread to other countries in the region, including Indonesia, South Korea, and Malaysia. Critics labeled Soros as an economic hitman, someone who profited from the misery of entire nations. Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad famously called him a moron and accused him of ruining the lives of millions. But Soros defended his actions, arguing that he was simply playing by the rules of the market and that the real blame lay with the flawed economic policies of the countries involved. The fallout from these events would lead to years of debate about the ethics of speculation and the power wielded by hedge funds like Soros. Despite the controversy, Soros remained unapologetic, viewing his actions as part of the larger financial system that he both profited from and critiqued. Was Soros a villain or a visionary? The truth might lie somewhere in between. But his story doesn't end with finance. Let's explore another side of George Soros. Despite the controversies surrounding his financial dealings, George Soros has always maintained that his true passion lies in philanthropy. In 1979, driven by his own experiences of tyranny and oppression, Soros founded the Open Society Foundations, an organization dedicated to promoting democracy, human rights, and education around the world. Soros's philanthropic efforts are vast and varied, from supporting education in Central Asia to funding democratic movements in Eastern Europe. The Open Society Foundations operate in over 120 countries. Soros' vision is rooted in the belief that societies can only thrive when they are open, where governments are accountable and rights are respected. Over the decades, Soros has donated over $32 billion to causes he believes in, making him one of the most generous philanthropists in history. His efforts have helped fund universities, independent media, and civil rights organizations. One of his most significant contributions was to the fight against apartheid in South Africa. However, Soros's philanthropy has not been without controversy. His support for liberal causes, particularly in Eastern Europe and the United States, has made him a target for far-right groups and conspiracy theorists. Some have accused him of using his wealth to meddle in the internal affairs of sovereign nations, pushing a globalist agenda that undermines national sovereignty. Soros has always denied these accusations, arguing that his philanthropy is guided by his belief in the principles of an open society. Yet the controversy surrounding his influence persists. In recent years, Soros has become a figure of intense scrutiny, particularly in countries like Hungary and Russia, where his foundations have been accused of undermining the state. In Hungary, Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has even passed legislation aimed at curbing the influence of Soros-funded organizations. Is Soros a force for good, or is there more to his story? The answer might depend on who you ask, but one thing is certain: his impact is undeniable. But what about recent years? Even in his late 80s, George Soros remains a prominent figure in global affairs. In recent years, his focus has shifted towards the challenges facing the European Union, particularly in light of the Brexit referendum. Soros has been one of the most vocal critics of Brexit, arguing that it threatens the stability of Europe and the values of the open society. Soros has actively funded campaigns to push for a second referendum on Brexit, believing that the British public was misled during the initial vote. He has also expressed concern about the rise of nationalism across Europe, warning that it could lead to the unraveling of the European Union. To counter this, Soros has proposed the issuance of perpetual bonds to help the EU recover from the economic impact of COVID-19 and to strengthen the Union against future crises. His involvement in European politics has kept him in the public eye, and his influence on global policy remains as strong as ever. However, this has also made him a target for those who see his advocacy as an overreach of influence. Despite the criticism, Soros continues to push for policies that he believes will protect the values of democracy and human rights. As we approach the end of our story, one question remains: how will history remember George Soros? Let's conclude. George Soros is a man of contradictions, a financial genius who made billions by challenging the status quo, and a philanthropist who has given away his fortune to build a better world. But he is also a polarizing figure, revered by some and reviled by others. His legacy is complex, and his impact on the world will be debated for generations to come. As we've seen, Soros is not easily defined. He is a man who has played many roles: trader, philosopher, philanthropist, and perhaps to some, even a puppet master. But no matter what you believe, one thing is certain: George Soros has changed the world in ways few others have. His story is a testament to the power of ideas and the influence of money in shaping our world. Whether you see him as a hero or a villain, George Soros remains one of the most intriguing and influential figures of our time. His actions, both in finance and philanthropy, continue to ripple across the globe, affecting millions of lives. But beyond the headlines and the controversies, Soros is ultimately a man driven by his beliefs, a belief in the fallibility of human knowledge, a belief in the need for open societies, and a belief in the power of the individual to effect change. These are the ideas that have guided his life, and they are the ideas that will define his legacy. If this deep dive into the life of George Soros has sparked your curiosity, if you're eager to explore more stories of the people who shape our world, then hit that subscribe button. Join us on this journey where we unravel the lives of the most influential figures of our time. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.